Good morning, everybody. This is Mr. Albanez, and this is the homework video for October 18th. Today is Wednesday, but we are going to be going over Thursday's column. So your homework for October 18th is the Thursday column, the fourth column. And in this column, we're going to be simplifying fractions. Now, when simplifying fractions, we want to first check whether we're going to be dealing with an improper fraction or a proper fraction. An improper fraction is a fraction that has the numerator or the top number bigger than the denominator. So in this case, the numerator, our top number 12, is bigger than our denominator, and so we call this an improper fraction because we're regularly used to having fractions having the numerator be smaller than the denominator, or the top number smaller than the bottom number. So with an improper fraction, the first thing that we're going to need to do in order to start simplifying it is to turn it into a mixed number. So we've got 12 over 8, and how do we turn an improper fraction into a mixed number? We divide. So to turn an improper fraction such as this one into a mixed number, we're going to need to divide the numbers and then put the remainder over our denominator. So that would be like this. We'd put the 12 on the inside of our division sign. Remember, the top number goes on the inside. And then we'd put the 8 on the outside. And then we'd have to ask ourselves, well, how many times does 8 go into 12 evenly? 8 goes into 12 evenly one time, because 8 times 1 equals 8, and then 8 times 2 equals 16, and 16 is much bigger than the 12, and so 8 times 1 would be the proper answer because that leaves us with a remainder. So 8 times 1 is 8, 12 minus 8 is 4, and now you might accidentally make the mistake of continuing to do this problem by adding a decimal and a 0, but that would not be what we're doing in this case because we don't want our answer as a decimal. We want our answer as a mixed number. And so what we do instead is now we're ready to take the whole number is going to be the number of times that 8 goes into 12 evenly, and then the fraction part of the mixed number is going to be the remainder over your denominator, or over the 8. And so this 12 over 8, or 12/8 fraction, this improper fraction as a mixed number, is equal to 1 4/8. Now, we're not done just quite yet, because we still need to, excuse me, we're not done quite yet because we still need to turn this 1 4/8 into its simplest form. We're not going to do anything with the 1 anymore, but this 4/8 can still simplify down. So you can either do one of two things. You can factor. If you factor both numbers, you'll see that the prime factors that they have in common are going to be 2 times 2 for 4, and 2 times 2 times 2 for 8. And then you're going to cancel out common factors. And then when we canceled out both of those 2's up top, that is going to leave us with 1. Not a 0, but a 1. And then there's going to leave us with this 2 on the bottom because we canceled out the other 2's. It's going to leave us with 1/2. Now, I prefer to do the reverse division ladder, where instead we just take both numbers. We take 4 and 8 and put them in this reverse division sign. And then we ask ourselves, what number can go both into 4 and 8? Well, they're both even numbers, so 2 can go into both of them. But you also might recognize that another number that could go into both of these is 4, because 4 will go into 4 one time, and 4 will go into 8 2 times. And so this leaves us with just 1 and 2. Is there any number that goes into 1 and 2? Just 1, 1 and done. And so 1 4/8 simplifies down to 1 1/2. And this makes sense because 4 is half of 8, so the simplified version of that would be 1 1/2. Okay, now we're going to do the same thing for this improper fraction. We've got another improper fraction. So we're going to divide the numbers. So how many times does 5 go into 25? Remember, I put the top number on the inside, bottom number on the outside. And 5 goes into 25 5 times evenly, with a remainder of 0. So we're actually not going to have a fraction part. We're just going to have a whole number. Our answer is going to be 5 But before we finish, we got to ask ourselves, is this going to be a positive or negative 5? We did 25 divided by negative 5, but we've got this negative on the outside. Now remember that we talked about earlier in the semester that this negative sign can be attached to neither of these two. It can remain on the outside. It could be attached to just the 25. It could be attached to this negative 5, and it would be negative 5. But in reality, what we're most concerned about is how many negative signs do we have? If we have an even number of negative signs, that is any 2, 4, 6, 8, then our answer is going to be positive. But if we had an odd number of negative signs, like 1, 3, 5, 7, then our answer is going to be negative. The reason is because these, whenever we have pairs or even numbers, then we can cancel them out because the negatives will cancel each other out. And so in this case, our answer would be a positive 5. If there was only one negative sign, if this negative sign wasn't there, then our answer would be negative because that other negative wouldn't have anything to cancel out with. So all in all, our answer is negative 5, positive 5. My apologies. We're going to do the same thing for this improper fraction. Remember, improper fractions, we want to turn to a mixed number first. So 28 divided by 2. How many times does 2 go into 2? 1 time. With a remainder of 0, drop down to 8. 2 goes into 8 4 times with a remainder of 0. And so no, there's not going to be any fraction part to this answer. It's just going to be 14. And then again, ask ourselves, is this going to be a positive or negative 14? Well, how many negative signs do we have? We've got one negative sign. And so if we only have one negative sign or an odd number of negative signs, that means that our answer is going to be negative. Okay, let's check out the other one. Let's see if we get a mixed number or a whole number as an answer. Let's see, we've got negative 100 over 25. So we're going to do 100 divided by 25. 25 goes into 100 4 times with a remainder of 0. And so our answer, the number in our answer is going to be 4. Now we have to ask ourselves, is it positive or negative 4? We only have one negative sign. And so that means it doesn't have another negative sign to cancel out with. So the answer is going to be a negative 4. Negative 42 over 7. Let's switch to a different color. So negative 42 over 7. So our answer, just from looking at this, I know is going to be negative. Why do I know it's going to be negative? Answer that to yourself. So, and then now I'm going to find the number part of my answer. We got 42. And then we're going to divide that by 7. We have to ask ourselves, how many times does 7 go evenly into 42? Well, 7 times 1 is 7. 7 times 2 is 14. 7 times 3 is 21. 7 times 4 is 28. 7 times 5 is 35. And 7 times 6 is 42. Perfect. So that's what it is 6. 7 goes into 42 6 times evenly. And because 7 times 6 equals 42, we are going to have a remainder of 0. And so the number part of our answer is going to be 6. So our answer for this next question is negative 6. Notice how all these questions are ending in whole numbers, even though we're still simplifying fractions like our instructions say. Instructions say to simplify fractions. That's because whenever you divide, you are technically working with fractions. It's one number over another number. Like I've told you guys in class, we can read these numbers as negative 25 over 125 or negative 25 divided by 125. One number over another number is the same thing as division. So now this one, we have a proper fraction here. So when we have a proper fraction, remember, a proper fraction is when the numerator is less than the denominator. It's what we're used to seeing. We don't need to divide. Instead, what we'll need to do is we just need to simplify the fraction. So I'm going to use the reverse division ladder because I feel like it's a little faster. If you use the factoring, that's totally fine, whatever works for you, as long as you're getting the answer right. So we've got 25 and then 125. And so we have to ask ourselves, what number goes both into 25 and 125? Thank you, Mr. Brown, for the candy you just gave me.
The answer is 30.
Shout out to Mr.
30, kids. Don't listen to me.
Shout out to Mr. Brown.
Hello.
So a number that goes both into 25 and 125, well, both of these numbers end in 5. And what number goes into any numbers that end in 5? 5. Now, something else you might have recognized is that another number that will go both into 25 and 125 is 25. because 25 will go into 25 one time, and 25 will go into 125 five times, which would leave us with a simplified fraction of 1 over 5. However, if you didn't recognize that just yet, just give it time. You'll get better at it. You'll start recognizing this stuff right away. But we'll keep working with this 5. 5 goes into 25 5 times. And how many times does 5 go into 125? You might have known that 5 goes into 25 5 times pretty fast, but 125 might be a little tougher. So what we'll do is we'll divide, because whenever you're asking yourself how many times one number goes into another number, you're basically doing division. 5 goes into 1 0 times, so we'll skip to the 2. 5 goes into 12 2 times. Move this up a little bit. 5 goes into 12 2 times. 5 times 2 is 10. Remainder of 2. Drop down to 5. 5 goes into 25 5 times. 5 times 5 is 25. Remainder is 0. So 5, all in all, goes into 125 25 times. And then now we have to ask ourselves just one more time, what number goes into 5 and 25? 5. 5 will go into 5 one time, and 5 will go into 25 5 times. So then now, is there a number that goes into 1 and 5? Just 1 and done. So our simplified fraction is going to include 1 over 5, but don't forget to ask yourself, is this positive or negative? You should always end your questions with, is this going to be positive or negative? We've got one negative sign, doesn't have another one to cancel out with, so our answer is going to be negative 1 over 5. And then this last one, I'm going to go ahead and leave that last one to you. Just remember to take a look at your negative signs. This is a proper fraction, so you're just going to be simplifying. There's no need to divide in this one. Shout out to Ray in my 5th hour. Think you're a great person. Hope you never change. And have a good day, guys. I'll see you in class.